regional integration is not by choice. I heard yesterday some people talking about our governments and maybe not committed. I want to remind you that actually all what we talk about, corridors, the establishment of corridors, the integration, it's not our term that we have invented at Sara or in the region. This came from the transport protocol and meteorology signed by heads of states in 1986 in Maseru. Chapter 7 is about the railways, where the railways are supposed to operate seamless service, predictable, reliable, across borders, international trains. So when we talk of corridors in this region, and maybe new ones coming through, they date back where the political will, the politicians, the heads of states expressed to say, we cannot act alone. Each railway, we have to be connected. Now, chapter 8 of that protocol is about integrated transport. I just want to give the context that these terminologies, we are expected actually to deliver. Next year, this protocol will be 40 years. In fact, in that protocol, there's also waterways and so forth, because in some countries, like Lake Malawi, Lake Victoria, that there are waterways on that. So really, what we are then saying, it's not by choice to be talking about regional integration. It's what our politicians, our principals expect us to do. And I'm asking myself, after all these years, how much have we achieved? We are going to hear from our panels here. Also, this integration, working together, providing seamless service to support the economy in Southern Africa, and of course Africa as a whole, it is because our networks are connected. So because they are connected, then we have to actually work in synchrony. We have to integrate. We have to have, through timetabling of trains, if it's trains, we have to also put all the transport modes so that there's a feeder system and a distribution system, a feeder to rail and also distribution from rail by road, because the region requires all modes of transport to be able to trade globally. So that is a way of putting the context about we need to strengthen regional integration because we're mandated to do so by our heads of states through the commitment they made in the protocol way back in 1986. Welcome, gentlemen. I hope I have a mic here. What I'm going to ask you to do is just to, starting from this end, just introduce yourself, your company, and briefly, I think to save time, you will go into contributing towards, this, what you understand, what you have seen, your experience, and what we need to do about strengthening regional integration. Over to you, Johnny Smith.
Good morning. Thank you for that, Stephen. My name is Johnny Smith. I'm the CEO for the rail division within Grindrod. Maybe just to touch a little bit on the topic. I would say for the biggest part of my career, I've been in developing corridors and focusing on regional integration. And the main aim for such a project is that there must be consensus between the different parties. So if you have different corridors, of course, could be a rail corridor combination between rail and road, is that many a times the various countries, they don't have the same objectives. So the first thing where you need to start with is, let's use, for example, the North-South corridor. Quite a few countries involved, but the question is the objective of South Africa the same as the objective of Zimbabwe? Is the objective of Zambia the same as the other two countries? Is the objective of DRC the same as the other three? And first, you have to make sure that at policy level, the various countries agree before you move forward in terms of making sure that you get to a level where that understanding and then eventual implementation of improving that corridor and ensuring that you have a seamless integration between the various countries, because at the end of the day, for a train is to reduce the transit time to a level where you have the best efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before Nakala Logistics, I just want to the point that you have raised. Yes, you find that in some of the, I would say, big countries, Eswatini is a small country, so there's no internal traffic. But in other countries, there is internal movement of traffic within the country. And now when you talk about the corridor, which is serving everyone, you may find that because of capacity constraints, the priorities would differ. Whilst we are expecting, as the other railways in the corridor, for the resources like locomotives and work on, you may find that that particular railway would be saying, I have to serve my internal customers first before I can. So then the corridor operations would suffer. So when Johnny says different objectives, different priorities, I do understand. However, now we want to, this is an economic bloc, and we want to make sure that even our theme this year is talking about transporting Africa into the future. And we're talking about a free trade area. We have a lot on our plate to integrate, share resources, and of course increase our capacity. Let me hand over to our Nakala Logistics.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm Srinivas Mantrala. I'm head of fixed infrastructure of Nakala Logistics Corridor. And I come from basically Indian Railways with an experience of more than 15, 16 years in Indian Railways. Then for in the Nakala Logistics Corridor, I'm working for the last 3 years. And one of my responsibilities is improving the rail connectivity in this region. For example, we have commissioned the railway line, rehabilitated the railway line from Limbi to Kanengo in Malawi.
Yeah.
So now trains are in operation. And we are going to extend the line to Mishinji border and to Chipata to serve Zambia. This is in progress. With whatever experience I'm having, and I've worked in this area for the last 3 years, I would like to say many countries in Africa are landlocked and they need to depend on border countries who have sea routes. And in the long run, for the economic development of a region, transportation plays a vital role. And we must integrate with water transport, rail transport, then local road transport. All the three should be integrated. In this context, I would like to highlight Nakala is a very deep water port with a 20-meter draft. I mean, this port has a huge potential for development. And Nakala Logistics Corridor is a very advanced and very sophisticated railway in this part of the world. And it can serve 3 countries, Mozambique, Malawi, and Zambia. And I look forward and work for this development. My company also will do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I move on, I just want to ask to say, now you operate the trains from Moitize, which is called, that operation with your crews, does it cut across the Malawi into Nakala, or you hand over? Can you just give us a picture of how you operate that system?
We have two operations. One is coal operations. Basically, we have a mine at Motis in Tet province of Mozambique. And then from mine is owned by our parent company, Vulcan. And then we have the Nakala logistics corridor with a coal port, and we load into the ships. So we have two verticals, mine and Nakala logistics corridor. And that is about our company.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will move on to Madam from MD of NRZ. Yeah, NRZ is in my heart. I was trained in NRZ, by the way, in Zimbabwe, way back from 1981 to 85. So yes, Madam, can give us your view, introduce yourself and give us your view.
Okay, thank you very much. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Aina Dube Kaguru, I'm the MD of NRZ. Thank you very much for this topic that we have here. I just like the strengthening bit of it. It means there's something that is happening in the region already. So when we are looking at our position like Zimbabwe, I think we start from a point of the landlocked, land-linked. Knowing that within the region, others are bordered by the seas, yes, and others are inside, but all the same, there is the provision of the markets. We are sharing one thing. What is the benefit that we have? Whether you've got the seas, the ports, you've got direct linkage to the ports, and for nations like Zimbabwe that are a little out of the ports, what we also get is we integrate. So for us, we are saying each one of us has got a contribution, and we need to also create the environment that will promote that regional integration. And we are looking at the synergies that we can exploit amongst ourselves. So if South Africa has access to the ports, Zimbabwe being central, and we're able to distribute the products coming into the ports, and that we are also sending through to the ports. So it's up to us now to put our heads together and say, what do we have to do that can make us stronger at the end of the day as a region? Because you cannot look at yourselves as singular nations, but we are looking at each other and saying we are building something that is strong as a region. Zimbabwe by itself, if the borders are closed out, it means we are also not going to access the ports, because like Zimbabwe, mostly we are doing minerals that are going all over the world, and so we need the ports at the end of the day. But we also require imports that come through the ports. So for us, we've got legacy infrastructure. So we know that I think from the presentations that we had right through from when we started this conference, we had different organizations sharing about the state of their infrastructure. And with the cost that goes into rail infrastructure, certainly you will need others. So for me, I'm starting from that point where I'm saying each one of us, we've got something to contribute, and we don't want to be viewed as the weakest link, even in Zimbabwe or any other of the nations that are in the region. So it's up to us to create that kind of a connection or that kind of connectivity that will make our businesses tick at the end of the day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam. NRZ. NRZ, yes, as you have rightly said, is the hub, because there's the barrier corridor through Mozambique. There is also the Bait Bridge, which is the north-south corridor, going as far as Lubumbashi, as the Plum Tree corridor. So there's the Limpopo, Kuchikwala, connecting in Mozambique. So there's a big role in this integration that NRZ would play. I remember in the 1980s, I'm going to mention a figure that might shock you. NRZ handled 12 million tons. I don't know now, but I know then that how busy, NRZ was in those years. Very, very important connection. Because when you are at the center, then it means your role as well is how you handle the transit cargo, you know. In the railways, when you are handling transit cargo, we're looking at you picking up the train, not breaking it because it doesn't need any shunting. You take it straight to the next changeover point and so forth. And this thing, the corridor concept, means that, you know, you must have compatible equipment. We must power. If it's a 40-wagon train with a gross ton maybe of 3,000, then you don't break because that is a consignment. It's a block train. It's a consignment that must reach the port with its documentation. And as railways, there were instances where this consignment documented in one document arrives at the port in trips and traps, and of course causing a lot of inconvenience to our clients, because some of the things that happen free on board means that the consignment has arrived at the port and the producer or the seller gets paid. Let me move on to CEO of Transnet, Russell.
Good morning, ladies and gents. Thanks, Stevenson. My name is Russell Baikis. I'm the Chief Executive of Transnet Freight Rail. So, like you said, there is political will, and I think when the conference started, we heard that from the minister as well, and from the panel as well, with the ministers from the various countries and the deputy ministers. I would like to believe that everybody that is here, the objective really is to get more of what we move in our respective countries onto rail. So what is on the road currently is to get more of that onto rail. That for me is the primary objective of what we're trying to do. But in that, obviously you need to make sure that you create sustainable railways that can survive over time. We've gone through some difficulty, and we in this recovery phase as TFR, but it's important to us that we understand that we live in an ecosystem. We live in a region, or we are in a region where we have to collaborate and make sure that we strengthen others if we are to do more volumes. Now, when you engage the other Sara countries, and Johnny spoke about the objectives, our view is not all of us have the same challenges. Some of us might have infrastructure challenges, some of us might have rolling stock challenges, there might be training issues, some might have cash flow issues. Our objective, and I think our responsibility as the leadership in Sara and as the Sara community, is to come together and see then what are those various challenges and how we can collaborate to deal with those issues. Whether it's issues of over-border movements, whether it's issues of regulation, whether it's issues of training. I think if the political will is there, which is clearly is there, as the leadership in Sara, we now have to get together and see where we meet each other and find solutions for the individual problems that we have. So if it's an issue of rolling stock, does TFR have rolling stock? How can it assist another country? If it's an issue of training. So number one, it is then to restore the railway to what it was. And number two also, we can't just keep restoring. We also have to modernize the railways. Yeah. And I think that should be the conversations that we have with each other as we move forward, to say, how do we increase these volumes and get more of what is moved on the road back onto rail? How do we repair the infrastructure that we have? And also, how do we increase capacity? And then also, how do we modernize our railways that we have in Africa? Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Before the Eswatini CEO, what you have just shared with us, Russell, is very, very important. I think as railways, we depended a lot on TFR. There are some figures that I remember because I've been around. In the 90s up to early 2000s, in the region, TFR wagons were about 185,000. So you can see that most of the cargo that we carried through the region was TFR wagons. And what happened with us, you would find that either our wagons, because there are two systems, there's vacuum braking, there's air braking, and we had to develop technical standards to say, I think it's 2025 actually, if I recall, we wanted to say in this region you should be running only air brake. But I know that there's still vacuum because, these different systems meant that, again, we are not going to achieve the integration. We are not going to achieve the seamless service, and sometimes affected by the track standard and the track condition and all those things. But there are things that we have to do practically. There are things that we have to invest in so that we are able to. The integration we are talking about is not just lip service. It has to translate into tangible things that we do. The investment in the track, the investment in wagons, rolling stock, of course the modernization, so that we are able to carry the cargo. I now go to CEO of Eswatini Railways, Mr. Dlamini.
Thank you, Mr. Ngubane, and again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
My name is Nixon Dlamini. I am the Chief Executive Officer for Eswatini Railways. Eswatini Railways is sits we sit between Mozambique and South Africa. We are bang in the middle. Our network is 301 kilometers long, and it's divided into two parts. About 189 kilometers of that is the north-south line, which captures all the traffic that comes from as far north as the DRC down to Richards Bay and Durban, and vice versa. So products that we carry include rock phosphate, magnetite, copper concentrate, containers, fuel, you name it. We used to get granite from Zimbabwe as well, but that's not coming through. Then we also have this other portion, which is about 112 kilometers. It's the east-west line. That connects us with the port of Maputo. Now, it also forms part of what we call the Goba Corridor. The north-south line, which is our main line, that forms part of the north-south corridor. The last major investment that we've had on the railway, it was 30 years ago. So what it means that we need to do some work on our lines to increase the lifespan, but also facilitate traffic that's moving through Eswatini. So we move about 7.5 million tons per annum. Now, going back to the topic today, this morning, strengthening regional integration, building the backbone of Africa's economic transformation. Just going back to what NRZ highlighted was that we're strengthening something that's already there. Right? So talking about the infrastructure that I said in Eswatini the last major intervention was 30 years ago, it means that then we have to now do something that will ensure that the traffic that I'm talking about, the 7.5 million tons, becomes maybe 30 million tons per annum. Now, how do you do that? Well, first and foremost, I'll talk about practical examples. We saw on the Goba Corridor 4 years ago, the traffic that was moving on the Goba Corridor was about 200,000 tons per annum. Now we're touching about 1.5 million tons per annum. And this is in line with what the protocol, as you've mentioned, Mr. Ngubane, that the SADC protocol, to facilitate this development, to facilitate the movement of traffic, we have to concentrate on these corridors. It's a corridor at a time, and what we found to have worked for us is communication. So I speak to TFR, and I also speak to CFM And then further on, further afield, obviously there's traffic that emanates from the north. We have to speak to Zimbabwe. We have to speak to Botswana at some point. So what are we doing to facilitate this movement or efficient movement of traffic? I'll make this is a practical example. The trains that run through our network are 80 wagons long. This is on the north-south. They're 80 wagons long. This is the rock phosphate and the magnetite. Basically, it is Transnet, it's TFR traffic. And so that goes down to Richards Bay. Now, in order to increase the throughput and also maximize the slots that we have available, TFR and the Eswatini Railways have trialed doubling the load. So we have been able to, we now move 160 wagon trains through Eswatini right up to Palabora, which just means that now it's a more efficient system because you don't have to uncouple the train and split it into two halves when it gets into Eswatini. What does that mean? It means that the amount of, we started with the empty wagons first, but now we're trialing a full, we've tried actually a full consist. So that translates to, so instead of having double the crews and spending maybe double the time to get the product to port, we've now cut that operation to one instead of having two trains, for instance. And then also, what we have seen, if we use intermodal, because we do need trucks. I mean, the last mile, you need trucks to get product to the railhead. What we have discovered is that one of the borders where we have trucks bringing in cargo into Eswatini to the closest railhead for transport to the ports of Maputo, we have seen that that corridor has developed quite impressively. The border that the trucks use never used to be a 24-hour border crossing. Now it's a 24-hour border crossing, and it's now the busiest, it's the second busiest border after Bait Bridge. So, and you're looking at 1,000 trucks, over 1,000 trucks that go through that border per day. That border crossing had no shopping center, it had no KFC, but it's become such a busy border crossing. Why is that? It just demonstrates that if you just tweak the system a little bit. So why am I going through all this? I'm just saying there's collaboration, there's room obviously for us to communicate and make sure that this infrastructure that we have pays dividends, but also it helps our customers get their goods to port. I've said a mouthful, but
thank you,
Chair.
thank you, Nixon. I want to say more because I would be understood as being biased. So about Eswatini Railways operation, but I can say this, that with the TFR from 1986, integration is about cross-border working to some extent, allowing your locomotives, because railways come from where actually we're depositing cargo at the border. And if you believe me, I've been around. In the 80s, we used to say, tell the other railway, I have delivered 10,000 tons at the border. But when I have delivered, I didn't even tell when I was running the train, when it will arrive. Then I would expect that person to start up and go and collect the cargo at the border. And of course, he loses one day, he loses, because he only just got the message when all the tonnage, all the trains are there. But of course, that has changed. In integration, you are looking for a through timetable. You are looking for, from origin, somebody at the other end, or the railways in between, knowing that there's a train coming through with 40 wagons, and it is of this gross tonnage, therefore I must prepare the motive power required so that I don't break the load. So those are the things. Then can I share with you that I went to East Africa, in 2019, I was surprised to know at Mombasa port, there are Ugandan revenue officials who clear the cargo that is destined for Kampala in Mombasa port. That is integration that I was really marveled. When they've done that, the truckers take that cargo, they have a yellow card, they are not stopped anywhere for declaration. All the way 1,300 kilometers into Kampala. You can imagine the transit time. That's the integration in East Africa that I've witnessed that they've done. In another country, the revenue officers are there. Now, I do have questions to my panel. They can't get away that easily. They've told their story. My question is, what are these benefits? Because when we talk about integration, we want something that is going to give us benefits. You know, what are these benefits? So I'm going to start with Johnny Smith here to tell us what his experience in actually, because the integration is taking place, ladies and gentlemen. It's not like we're talking about, we're about to start it. That's why our topic says strengthening, improving. Johnny Smith?
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. I just want to basically follow through on what Russell said earlier and just use a practical example from what you also said earlier on the sort of tonnage level that Zimbabwe used to handle. So for the last 2 years, we have re-looked at the north-south corridor. And specifically starting at BBR. Now, the volumes has gone down to where the rail was probably doing 5% or less from quite a big percentage before. So how do you fix that? There's a lot of dynamics that has changed. Traditionally, Transnet used to, or TFR used to supply, and still up till today, most of the wagons going all the way through from South Africa up to Zambia. But all of these rail operators along the route, they have now new challenges. So how do you fix that? How do you find a way to also then reduce the transit time? So the first step that we took is, of course, we do have a partnership as BBR with NRZ on the section between Bulawayo up to Vic Falls. So it was for us to make sure that we strengthen that partnership in terms of also ensuring that efficiency is improved. Then we went to Zambia Railways and we said, can we develop a partnership in terms of possibly operating on your line? Even though, let's test it out for a year or for 6 months. So we did that. We went to the funders to see, could we possibly invest in whether it's now rolling stock infrastructure to support and develop those partnerships further on the north-south corridor. But then there's also other challenges in terms of the current legislation that you can't move on the infrastructure so much in terms of investment if you are the private sector. But nevertheless, we tried all of that. There was a bit of light in the tunnel. But then at the end of the day, what happened is that the transit time just did not work out for us. And it is for us to now go take a different approach to see how you can resolve this. Because at the end of the day, the benefit should be for the full corridor and then ensure that we move more freight towards rail than the current market share that we have, which is insignificant. So what do we do from our side as a partner in rail to ensure that those benefits are then created to everybody else, with everybody else having their own challenges? Thank you, Stephen.
Okay. Thank you, Johnny. Yes, there's a lot of things that we need to do individually, because at the end of the day, the part of the corridor where you are operating, we're expecting you to be as efficient as possible. Let me go to the next speaker, Nakala.
I'm happy to report to all that our general cargo operations in Malawi are improving. Improving means they're looking up very bright, and we're almost, meeting our targets of almost at 100%. And there's a lot of demand for running more fuel trains right up to Mishinji border, and we are developing that. And we are in touch with Zambian Railways to extend the line to Zambia, to Chipata. Chipata is something like 4th or 5th biggest city of Zambia. And we are planning to develop a dry port in collaboration with Zambian Railways. And going forward, I mean, there is a huge potential, and definitely will be in a position to serve all the 3 countries. I would like to say that.
Okay. Thank you. Madam, I want to, my question is changing a bit. Benefits, you can touch on it, but as a transit hub, NRZ being what it is, and we present from the south, present the cargo at Bay Bridge, from the north at Victoria Falls. Now, were you handling that cargo being in transit? What are the challenges you face? What do we need to do in terms of maybe the length of trains that we bring to the interchange point? Can you comment on that?
Okay, thank you very much. I need to start from a point of appreciation, to still talk about the benefits.
Yeah.
You know, for our survival as NRZ, it's been our partners in the region, it's been the contiguous railways. So we have really seen some positive results from that regional integration. We've got BBR, like Johnny said, and with BBR, where we have failed to move traffic that has been given to us, we have depended so much on them also to come on the other side to help. And we have seen significant improvement in terms of tonnage. So we need to appreciate that. With CFM, they came through in terms of infrastructure, also as they were through working, improving on the tonnage. So I'll go then to the question that you gave to us, or as a transit point. Most of the traffic that we receive is transiting through from South Africa going to DRC, from Maputo to DRC. The challenges that we'll have in terms of the capacity that we use in the region, you'll see that the standards, for some they've upgraded. South Africa is upgraded, Mozambique is upgraded. You were talking about vacuum and versus air brake. Zim is a little behind. And so what has happened there is when the traffic gets into Zimbabwe, then it will take some bit of time to be cleared and to even turn around the same capacity to bring it back to move more traffic. So what it means then is when we are talking about the regional integration and the support that is required, is when TFR are looking at themselves and improving, they are not just looking at improving to get to Beitbridge border, because that's where the efficiencies will terminate. When the traffic gets into Zimbabwe, then it will go on to our line that also needs to be upgraded, and the resources that they were sending through that could have been used so many times may only be used once a month. And that becomes very costly even to the customer at the end of the day. So we are looking, we are saying as we appreciate the standards in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the traction and rolling stock, we are not looking at just where it's originating from that it becomes perfect, but we are a transit place ourselves in Zimbabwe. We transit quite a bit of traffic. Some of the traffic will come from Beira to Botswana via Plumtree. So you're saying our terrain, especially if I'm talking about Beira, from Mutare to Harare, there is quite some limitation in terms of the terrain itself. You find that where traffic came in, a 23 wagon train, now leaving Mutare to Harare, it's divided into two. Because even the motive power there will also have to be smaller. Because of, yes, the gauge is the same, but the terrain is a struggle. So we'll need a lot of improvement. We were talking about the Lions Den to Kafue. So when that one is done and it's improved, it also touches on the infrastructure, the modernization of the whole route, so that we improve from there, so that we enable the transiting of traffic in good time to save our customers well. So that's where we also promote this matter of strengthening the regional integration.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam. I'll go to Russell, but before you comment, I would like to, in terms of TFR, TFR is a big operator, container trains. Okay, it's internal because from City Deep to Durban, big trains, you have big lines, coal lines, and the iron ore lines. Now, one of the things in terms of improving our economies is actually to do with dry ports. Dry ports, meaning that you have an inland clearance depot. And in Eswatini, we introduced that in 1993, and it had a huge impact to our exporters and importers. What does it mean? It means that the dry port at Matsapa is actually an international seaport without a sea, meaning that if you send anything from wherever in the world, you destine it, you manifest it to Matsapa. What then happens at the port of Durban is just to transship from the discharge of the ship into rail. There's no documentation at Durban which would delay the cargo. You just transship to a rail wagon, everything will be processed in Matsapa, inland. Also the exporters, they process, the shipping lines are there, they are agents, and you just move that train into the quayside of the ship. There's no documentation. I'm just mentioning one of the integration things that can be achieved. Now I'm putting in ports, because integration actually is not just on rail. Integration is the whole, that's why I said the protocol has chapter 8 as the integrated transport, meaning that the countries, the region requires road and rail complementing each other, being, one and the same thing, but obviously playing similar or different roles. Share with us, Russell, benefits and of integration, because you are interacting with, again, a number of corridors, either through or originating, but of course a lot of cargo originating from South Africa.
So firstly, in terms of the benefits with our partners, so I think Nixon spoke about the work that we're doing in Eswatini.
Yeah.
And I would say we're doing similar work to Maputo. And you spoke earlier about the train standing, one entity leaving a train and standing for days until the next entity. When you're in the railway space, what you want to do is you want to sweat your assets. You want to turn them around as quickly as you can so that they can do more cargo with the existing assets that you have. You also want to run maximum length trains.
Yeah.
Now, we've spoken about, on the iron ore line, we've got the 348 wagon train. And manganese, we've got 375. And then we've got some other trains on the coal line, 312 wagon train. We're thinking about testing a longer one. Probably by the next conference I can give more feedback on that. What we want to do also in Eswatini, like Nixon has said, is then to increase that slot utilization. The benefit is then that the 160 wagons gives you, number one, more throughput, and number two, also, you increase your cycle time because with one movement, you then moving effectively double the train. We've seen our volumes grow. I think last year for over border, just over 9 million tons. I think this year we might do more than 10 million tons, or get close to 10 million tons. So you can see the advantages of these collaborations by your increased tonnage. You also transfer skills, because I mean you establish new concepts in terms of longer trains and transferring those skills, because you have to train the drivers as well for that.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a key benefit for us. The increased volumes, we have a different concept that we also use apart from the dry ports. I'll talk about that a little bit. So manganese, I'll talk about manganese specifically. So I would say in about 2012, 2013, manganese capacity mostly through Port of PE at the time, was about 5 million tons. And then we did about 1 million tons through Durban, which means in total is about 6 million tons. We've then changed the concept to what we call a back of port, which is effectively also what you're referring to, is then to invest in additional offloading facilities and additional terminals is expensive. So we then partnered with private industries to create what we call these back of ports. And manganese this year would get close to 17 million tons. Just by using that concept, we've added more than 10 million tons in terms of capacity.
Good.
You get to the port, you offload the cargo, and when the vessel comes in, you do road transportation from that back of port into the port. I think on Eswatini side, what they're busy with is this dry port. They have a very nice concept, also where they want to establish a hub, and we want to be involved in that, and a sort of consolidation that you're referring to for various commodities. We've got several other concepts that we also make use of, and also from a loading point of view, where you have customers loading at a consolidation point. So gone are the days where the customers, especially mining customers, have to have these big and expensive loadout stations. We come up with new agile solutions. I see some of the partners sitting here. Agile solutions where you invest in other loading types that are less expensive, where you use front loaders to enable emerging miners, junior miners, and give them capacity. So I think the game has changed from what we had before, where you have to have these established, expensive infrastructure to create volumes. If we had gone that way, I don't think we would have reached the volumes that we've reached if we said, you have to invest in a loadout station, you have to invest in tipless. And especially I think in the African context, we know big investments are an issue. We don't have those balance sheets to make these massive investments. So we need to think differently about how we do things. Come up with agile solutions. There are other solutions. More agile solutions, less costly solutions. And if we want to really grow volumes, we have to invest in that and make sure that we enable more of that and work with private industry to create that sort of solution. And then really sweat these assets that we have. So I see real benefits in terms of that. And like I say, you don't have to wait for these big investments. Yeah. We can find different solutions and make things work.
Okay. Thank you, Russell. Before Nixon contributes to this topic, I'm going to have a special question for him. Some of the things, actually, the operating standards as the association has been around. It will be, if I'm not mistaken, 20 years next year, in 2026. It was established in 1996. Now, we have said, when you have inspected a train and certified it good to go, fit to be operated, it has to be cover 1,000 kilometers before the next inspection. That 1,000 kilometers, you may find that, because we had a tendency as railways to say, I'm also going to inspect this train. I'm also going to do a brake test on this train because it's entering my network, I must be sure. But then we agreed that the standard, if it says a roller bearing, I don't know about plain bearings, it's gone now, I think. So it's good enough to cover 1,000 kilometers. We also have a standard, by the way, at the interchange. A train should not be there what we call dwell time for more than 2 hours. So I'm trying to remind railways that are here that, because sometimes we don't look at these things yet they are documented as standard. We also had technical standards, what we adopt, is it AAR, or is it UIC, and so forth. So these are the things, there are technical things we have to do. Now, in integration, which is the question I want Mr. Dlamini to respond to, if we're going to achieve it, and actually in reducing the transit time. If a Zambian wagon has a problem in Swaziland, we should be able to attend to it. It has got cargo, precious cargo, by the way, copper, very expensive stuff. Now, so we have to attend to that wagon. What does it mean? It means in the railways technical engineering side, we have to know, because in the association, there are those committees. We have to know each other's work on, exchange information to say, I'm using this brake block, I'm using that. There's a problem. You remove the wagon, you attend to it, or in situ, then it continues. As opposed to some time back, where you will pull out the wagon from the train and then report to Lusaka or Kabwe to say, your wagon is sitting here. So in integration, there are certain technical things we have to put our hands on. How can we achieve that, Nixon?
Thank you, Mr. Ngubane. It's a very important point. I think, bodies like Sara are quite important when it comes to harmonizing standards. And I must say that we are already on that trajectory in terms of standards that we will be using for the region. A number of countries under Sara, or railway administrations under Sara, have already adopted these standards. We're not there yet, but certainly we're heading in that direction. You've mentioned a wagon probably developing a fault, for instance. When that happens in Eswatini, we have a workshop where we fix that wagon so that it's roadworthy, and then it proceeds. So and also there's business agreements that exist between these railway authorities. So I have a business agreement with CFM and also a business agreement with TFR, for instance, which covers situations such as the one that you've mentioned. The other thing, when it comes to technical standards, it can be a challenge sometimes. Well, it is a challenge sometimes. For instance, if you have in the network, the Swatini Railways network, we can handle 18.5 tons per axle loadings, and maximum 20. Now, if we have a heavier train traversing our track, then that's a problem, because then it will slowly degrade the infrastructure. So one is looking forward to a time where we will specify one axle loading to cover various loads. I talked about the 30-year, the last time we had any major improvements on the network, that was about 30 years ago. That means that we now have to upgrade. We're running on 48 kilograms per meter rail, and the other section is 40 kilograms. And then on either side of us, there's maybe 56 or 60 kg. So we're looking forward to a time where integration also talks about, even when we do the investment must be uniform. It's no use having high-speed lines on either side of me, and then I become the constraint. If they have high-speed turnouts and I only have 1 in 9s in my network, that's a constraint. But yes, it is very important, and Sara will be driving that. So Sara has subcommittees, so financial, technical, and so on. So these are the people who drive the various aspects to ensure that this this integration works.
Okay.
I can say more, you know.
Okay,
but,
thank you very much. They have whispered into my ears that time is up, but I just want one panelist to comment on communication. But we have had communication, new technologies, but in this integration, strengthening integration, we have to establish, we have to have a communication infrastructure between the railways, right across, you know, so what is happening in that area to be able to communicate, update each other in certain ways, in broad terms. Who wants to take it on? Madam?
Thank you. I'll talk about that. We certainly have observed that many times where we have missed it is because we haven't communicated well.
Yeah.
What we require, you talked about even from the documentation itself. Yeah, as we start moving the traffic in Zimbabwe, I will give the reason why I raised, quickly took the mic, is the transit point. We have missed each other on dates, even to the ports and everything, because we haven't communicated well. So what has started happening, I'm glad CFM and us have started on something on our wagon tracking system. It's now being rolled out through into Zimbabwe. And we want to believe that we'll roll it out through to Botswana, to Zambia, and with the connection that we have with South Africa. Because now, with that, we are enabled even to track the trains as they are moving. We know how they are performing. Our trains, our staff on the trains, and we know where the traffic is for the customer, for the benefit of the customer, that they will know certainly that we are at this point, and there could be delays at this particular interchange point because we haven't done this. So now there is that rolling out of the system. We have really jumped onto it as Zimbabwe, and we are going to be promoting it through as a transit point. Really, it's critical for us.
Thank you, Madam. I think you have to end it there, and I would like to summarize and say, regional integration, we have no choice. If we don't improve it and get it to its optimal level, then it will be a disservice to our clients and to our countries, because we know that what is being produced in this country obviously is traded globally. Also that we receive imports, we also export. That's how the world is. Therefore, wherever we are, let us put more effort. Let us have the business agreements. In addition to that, let us have the operational agreements or the SLAs. Let us work together. Let us do joint planning. Let us do joint execution. Let us communicate, between each other. Let us also make sure that the equipment, the locomotives are compatible, and we set the laws to be taken from one country to country. Let us allow the locomotives to run through. Let us allow our crews to run through, because that way we are going to reduce the transit time. Transit time has the magic of reducing the turnaround time. Turnaround time is about how many times you load your work on in a month or in a specific time. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself having to put more resources for the tonnage that could be moved in less resources. Thank you very much, my panelists, and let us give them a hand of applause.